Hello, wonderful people. Chris Odom here. I'm going to work with you a little bit today on another video on StudySync. We're going to look at some digital scaffolding and how powerful that tool could be, and some ideas perhaps about why we should start utilizing such features and support our learners at this point in the year. If you still haven't turned on those features, I think you're going to find that they are particularly powerful, and again, using them and then attracting students to why we use them and kind of instructing them to own those a little bit is really a powerful way that we can internalize some goals toward improving academic language, academic sentence frames, academic voice, so that when students are put in these situations where they do need that practice to show off in their writing and feel comfortable and strong as they navigate some of these more challenging writing prompts they are exposed to, then I think you're going to find maybe that there's been some examples of how sentence frames and speaking frames really do plan for us to be intentional about growing some of this particular language that we often don't practice unless we're intentional. Okay, so that said, let me share my screen. And we can take a trip in here and start looking at some of these digital scaffolds. Okay, so really the first thing I want you to see is what they do and how turning these features on in StudySync really does provide quite a few powerful ways for students to navigate almost privately and feel like they are stable and keeping up with some of the content that might in some ways overwhelm them if we were not using some of these features. So if you're not using these features yet, let's see if we can start making those one of our goals. Okay, so under users, you will find that right now I'm logged in as a school and I have particular groups listed here, but it came up as users. Okay, I'm sorry, as groups on the first tab. So the only thing you'll really need to do to make these settings is, and I'm going to show you what they do here in just a second, is go into users. And you'll see in the middle here that we have some students who have had this setting changed for them by their teacher. And the moment you make this change, it takes effect and modifies all the tasks that will come in the future. And you can also go in and turn it off or change the setting levels. There's a number of different levels that you can select from. So essentially we could start at a certain level and then start working our way up so that we're slowly removing some of the supports and causing a little more self-sufficiency and kind of getting away from keeping that strategy forever so that we could see the evidence of practice with it when we aren't using it anymore. It's a pretty neat feature. So it's designed with that in mind. The other thing you can really plan on using would be a support language. And so one of 9 choices exist right now, and I think they're adding some each year to be able to see particular parts of the lesson that are in a language more familiar to the student. This does not change the reading portion or the passage, but it does give you a text synopsis and actually a audio synopsis that is in that language that is really well done and read appropriately and not a robot reading a different language. Okay, so again, this is where we'll come back and I'll show you after one more time after we see what those features enable and how by changing the proficiency levels for students, then they are afforded certain scaffolds electronically embedded in every task. Okay, so I'm going to go into a task and show you what that looks like. Okay, we're going to go into Core LA. I'm going to jump into Unit 1 here in grade 7. And all of the tasks will serve as a good example, but different tasks feature different scaffolds. Some of the tasks are more centered around speaking that day, more around writing that day. A lot of the tasks are centered around vocabulary, so you'll often see a lot of the vocabulary feature scaffolds like visual glossaries and things of that nature. Okay, so I'm in the Core ELA tab. I'm going to go to Integrated Reading and Writing, and I'm going to go ahead and just open a first read assignment. I'm going to turn on a first read because the first read really puts into effect a lot of the parts and pieces that are about discussion, about writing, and about reading. Okay, so when I go to the lesson preview, this is another way you could show your students and kind of help them see the benefit of having these features just like you have a little bit of scaffolding digitally in the right corner for yourself in this view while you're leading a lesson, the students also have the ability to have such a tab. So if I turn on English Learner Beginning, which is the level that provides the most scaffolds, you will see a blue button appears on the left side. And this is in real time, something the student can turn on. I'm sorry, can't turn on, but can select off and on like that. But you, the teacher, are the one that turns those settings on for the student. Remember what I just showed you. Okay, so we're going to turn on these scaffolds just so we can view that in this particular lesson, there are some speaking frames, because part of the goal in reading and listening to the small introduction passage is having a text talk opportunity to talk at your group and then talk whole group about what we just saw in the intro. Okay, in the reading component, I'll leave this button open, but you see it's just as easy as turning it on and off for each feature. The glossary is there, and it features, again, a visual component so that we might be able to connect this word back to something we already know and feel more part of the lesson. Okay, that's really a hard word, decree, to give a command. And I guess in this case, this picture, it'd be hard for me to see that as giving a command, but I see that there is a microphone there and a podium and a group of people. So it would be a chance to build that understanding. Here's banish and someone pointing for you to go away or leave that place, right? Deception, deceive, we have a picture of that. So a lot of powerful ways for you to kind of trigger knowledge and awareness of things we already have, perhaps from a language that is not English, and then be able to benefit from that as we roll through this lesson. Okay, here's the synopsis I was talking about, in that for the reading, the student here is provided kind of an overall example of what the entire reading is about, a synopsis, and then even a glossary for the synopsis. What's nice is that this feature is the part that I was telling you would be featured in the student's support language, so that if I turn on a support language right here, such as French, and I go back in the scaffold and we look for the text synopsis, let's see if it takes. It does not, but it would on the student's version, and that they would see where I showed you synopsis, this language would be in French instead of in English. Okay, when we take a quiz, these digital scaffolds go away, as they are not part of quizzes or tests when we take them. In those high stakes situations, those scaffolds would not carry over and be part of those tests. So we practice without them also, in the hope that these two ways that the lesson has been scaffolded has helped student internalize and be able to do a little better on this quiz if they had not used those features beforehand. And then the final part of a lesson is a think. And again, the scaffolds are really helpful in the think. In this particular case, with the most supports turned on, the student has the ability to simply fill in the blank with some of the words chosen from the word bank, help construct the meaning, click this button, and the whole guy will move over as part of the passage. And so really now we're practicing the specific language and the comprehension. And if we were to decide that we don't need that feature, and that we're working toward a different level of instruction with that student, even just the next day or the next week, I can go in and change it to advanced. And you'll see then the scaffolds are not so much doing the work or even moving it over, but prompting the thinking, and letting, again, the student feel empowered that they're doing the majority of the work and the thinking themselves. Okay, so that is really how you turn on and utilize specific scaffolds and powerful ways to differentiate learning, so that students, again, are doing some of the struggle and the challenge, and that you're giving them some supports in doing that struggle and challenge, so that over time we build up this empowered person to be able to tackle text and do the productive struggle and not give up the first time that we are dismayed or worried or not sure of a particular word or phrase or passage. Okay. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, we've been talking just a little bit today about how to turn on those particular scaffolds and utilize the digital power that is included in StudySync. you're perhaps using the workbooks and things of that nature too, but you can see that potentially without using the machine and the workbook, you wouldn't have quite as many guaranteed scaffolds there for your students. Okay, hope this has been helpful for you, and we'll just leave it at that.